way down the field to Watkins. Sammy Watkins for the touchdown.
Well, we have reached the end of our scheduled summer series episodes of player rankings, division previews, and all of that. And we are concluding it with our final conference championship and Super Bowl predictions today, as we are in the midst of preseason action and heading into the regular season very shortly, if you can believe it, man. I mean, I can't believe it. It feels like yesterday when it was August and we were like, well, it still is, but it was July and we were like, man, let's just get some football. Now we're finally here. We welcome you to the Fumblerooski podcast by Power 88 and Secret Weapon Consulting. I'm Adam Wright with CJ Medeiros. Justin has work. And we have a great show planned for you guys tonight. The NFC Championship predictions, AFC as well, followed by Super Bowl predictions. And we asked you guys for your dark horse Super Bowl contenders. So that was a fun one. We ran into a small problem. Our feed was unusually active. And it all expired in our feed. So all the responses that we had, we know what was said, but we don't know who said it. So we can't give you guys credit. We can mention what was most said, there were some great responses, but we were not able to get all of the who said which response. But this is going to be a great episode, CJ. So do you want to kick us off with NFC Championship?
Yeah. Yes, I will. The NFC Championship game, it was weird for Adam and I to predict. And why is that? And we've mentioned many times on this show why. The NFC is very weak. It's top heavy, and it's just like you can make an argument for most teams unless you're coming from the NFC South. That being said, I decided to go a little bold. I'm thinking the NFC Championship will be the San Francisco 49ers and the Detroit Lions. Now, in the past, I've said that the NFC West, the key is when Brock Purdy comes back, because while he still has a lot to prove, he has shown that he can, at bare minimum, be an above-average game manager. And he still has room to grow. But it's looking very likely like he could start week 1. Like he's like full go at practice. And he is the QB1. And that team around him is loaded with George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and Brandon Ayuk, and a pretty good O-line to boot with a ferocious defense captained by Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, and Talanoa Hufanga. And they even have other guys like Charvarius Ward, and Dre Greenlaw, and Javon Hargrave. Like, that is just a star-studded team. And I've said before, the sooner Purdy comes back, the better. Well, it's looking like Purdy might actually play week 1. And even though I've been kind of a big fan of Seattle, I just don't see them stacking up to the 49ers. Although this year will be a little better than last. And then there's the Detroit Lions, who Adam and I have spoken a lot about on this channel. The Lions, now they didn't eclipse 500 and make the playoffs last year, but for the first time in a long time, they have expectations. And which is weird, when you talk about the Lions and expectations. But Jared Goff had a big time resurgence. You now have David Montgomery in the backfield. You've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, and eventually you'll have Jameson Williams. You got the tight end Sam Laporta, a good O-line, and an up-and-coming defense led by Aiden Hutchinson and CJ Gardner-Johnson. And they should win the NFC North, unless Jordan Love decides to become the second coming of Aaron Rodgers. And I would expect to see them in the NFC Championship, where the slightly more experienced 49ers will get the better of them. And for those wondering, hey, what about the Eagles? I like to point out Super Bowl hangover is a real thing. However, I do think they will make the playoffs, and they'll probably win a playoff game or two. But that remains to be seen. Right now, all in all, give me Niners and Lions. Niners come out on top. Adam, you are muted.
You're absolutely right. I was muted. And you're also right, because I like that pick for the Lions so much so that I also have the Lions being in the NFC Championship as well. And I have them hosting in this one. I think they're going to be the top seed. All of the momentum is on their side, and they just have talent everywhere you look. And they have become more and more competitive by the year under head coach Dan Campbell. And Jared Goff is proving that he wasn't just some puppet to Sean McVay. I understand he's not the number one overall pick stud quarterback that we all thought he was going to be, but he's much more than just a throw-in in the Matthew Stafford deal. We're seeing that now. And that while most of us thought that Goff was going to be a bridge quarterback to whoever they planned to draft as the next guy, no one told the Lions that clearly. And they think they're going to contend with them. And honestly, the more I've seen Goff play and play with real targets, the more I kind of agree. I think they're going to be contenders, and I think they're going to be the number one seed going into this year and make the conference championship. And they will be hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, I have the Eagles going back to the conference championship and playing for a chance to go back to the Super Bowl and be one of the few teams to lose the Super Bowl and then go back. However, their work is going to be cut out for them. Even if all of their ducks are in a row, we've seen time and time again, the teams that lose the Super Bowl are never the same the year after. Sometimes they overcome it. Once in a blue moon, they figure things out and they go back to the Super Bowl. Most of the time they don't. But I think things are going to be just good enough for them so that they're able to fight off every other team except one, which is going to be the Detroit Lions. And I have them going to the Super Bowl and playing for a chance for their first ever Super Bowl victory. And the Eagles, it's going to be a good game. I think this is going to be a great matchup. And the Eagles are going to be there at this point in the season, they will have been their true selves again, right? Their defense will be ferocious as always. Jalen Hurts will be running frantically as he always is. And he is going to be throwing deep balls all the time to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. And they're going to be racking up their touchdowns on the ground and on the air. But I just don't think it's going to be enough, because that Super Bowl hangover really is real. And I think this Lions team is all around. It has talent everywhere you look. I think they're going to put it all together. This team is motivated. They play for each other. And I think that is going to be the deciding factor. I think the Lions go to the Super Bowl. So that's my conference championship prediction.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I was so close to having Philly in myself, but I'm a little more of a staunch believer in the Super Bowl hangover. But then again, you already know what I think of the Lions. And I like how we're kind of in lockstep, regardless of the outcome, that they will make the NFC Championship, or at least they should if they live up to the expectations, like the one time we put expectations on them. And Philly, once again, a team I was grappling with, but overall, can't say that I dislike what you had. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if that was the NFC Championship in real life.
Yeah. And if this Eagles team winds up going back to the Super Bowl, all the power to them. I wouldn't rule it out, I wouldn't rule it out at all. I'm just saying I don't think they're going to go back. And I think when you replace you lose a lot of guys like they did this offseason, and then you replace them all, you wind up with all these new faces on one line, and they all have to find a way to gel and play together in one season. That usually doesn't work out too well. They'll figure it out down the stretch, and they might even win some playoff games. But I don't think that it's going to be enough for them to go back to the Super Bowl. They could. And there's nothing analytical about what I'm saying at all. So
also, well, hangover's not analytical either, but we've seen time and time again that more often than not, it's a real thing.
Yep. I believe it was 8 teams ever have gone back to the Super Bowl after losing it.
And how many?
4 of them? And 4 of those teams were the Buffalo Bills, by the way. How'd that work out for them? They tried again and again and again. Did not win it again. And I hate this argument too. It's not analytical. I like using the numbers to back me up. I do.
Sure.
But it just happens every single time. That's just the way it goes. So I have the Eagles. I'm kind enough to the Eagles to say that they're going back to the conference championship. So please, Eagles fans, do not bite my head off. You probably will because you're Eagles fans. But I think I can hold my own in an argument. I can do that.
I'm just saying I've lived amongst them. I know.
Yeah. And if they make it there, so be it. So be it. I understand. All right. Those are our NFC championship predictions. What about the AFC? We'll give those next. This is the Fumblerooski podcast.
Way down the field to Watkins. Sammy Watkins for the touchdown.
Welcome back to the Fumblerooski podcast. Adam Wright with CJ Medeiros. So as we did our NFC championship matchup predictions, we are going on to our AFC. And without further ado, what are your picks, CJ?
The AFC. Now, we were talking about how in the NFC, it was tough to predict because of the lack of talent. Well, the AFC, it's tough to predict because this is like Murderer's Row. Everybody has a case. Some are better than others, but there's a lot of elite quarterbacks, and there's only 2 spots for the AFC championship. So, I had to think about it. And call me crazy, but I think the AFC championship game will be a rematch of last season, Bengals and Chiefs. Now, let me get the Chiefs one out of the way. I am aware that on this podcast, we in the past have said, and I've said verbatim, offensively, the cupboard's pretty bare in Kansas City. And that's true. But you know who they have? Patrick Mahomes. And this guy could do more with less. He can make magic out of thin air. And he has an elite offensive line and the best tight end in the game. Now, granted, I'm not sold on Isaiah Pacheco. I am also not sold on Kadarius Toney or Marquez Valdez-Scantling or anyone else. But Mahomes, that is a man that I am sold on. And when you have at least an average defense, he could take you far. He could take you to the AFC Championship game, where they will have a rematch with the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals, a little older and a little wiser. Now, the Bengals, they lost some pieces on the offseason. like their safeties, Von Bell and Jesse Bates. But that's not going to be too big considering the fact that, they've got, what's his name, Nick Scott, right? And they also have Dax Hill, who I believe was a first-round pick or like really early second round.
First round pick, yeah.
Thanks, Adam. And on top of that, they have a good problem. They have too many tackles. You just got your franchise left tackle in Orlando Brown Jr., and either Jonah Williams or Lyle Collins will be playing right tackle. The O-line's beefed up. You have the best receiver room in the game. Adam and I, we've talked this team to death. However, this time around, the outcome will be different. I think the Bengals take it from Kansas City. And why? Because the Chiefs, we've said that Mahomes can do more with less, but how much less can he do more with? Because like we said, it's not exactly, the weapons are not exactly plentiful over there in Kansas City. And when you consider the fact that the defense isn't, lost guys like Juan Thornhill, and we don't even know if Chris Jones is going to play at all this year, I'm not sold. And I think Cincy will take it again, like they did 2 years ago. This time they win.
I was going to say this would be the third year in a row where these two teams matched up. It's almost turning into the Warriors-Cavs matchups in the NBA Finals all those years ago, when those would just happen every single year, and we just got tired of them happening. And it's a good quarterback rivalry. Right. So, Patrick Mahomes has the rings. But Joe Burrow is the new kid on the block who has been doing pretty well. And Patrick Mahomes is probably still going to do pretty well. And they're both young. So this is going to be a great AFC quarterback rivalry for years to come, which is good for the NFL, that we have two guys, very likable guys, I might add, on some championship caliber teams who are going to be clashing almost every year in the playoffs. I hope not every year. And that's where my conference championship prediction comes, where I have the Bengals going to the conference championship as well, but I also have the Jaguars going. Now, I understand what you might be thinking. Why the Jaguars when you have both the Chiefs and the Bills still looking pretty good and in championship contention? Well, they've been in it just about every year. And as good as the Bengals have been, they're just too flawed, and they have not taken a good look at their weaknesses.
You mean the Chiefs?
I'm talking about the Bills.
I could have sworn you said Bengals.
The Chiefs, I actually kind of believe in, and if they make it to the AFC Championship or even the Super Bowl, I would not be surprised in the slightest. Patrick Mahomes can do something with very little.
Wait, no. When you said Bills, for some reason it registered in my head as Bengals. Continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Bills are just way. They just don't understand what their flaws really are. And it's that their offense is way too one-dimensional. They are a cold weather team that plays in Buffalo. What does that mean? When it gets to December, it's going to be harder to do that air show type offense, going completely vertical. So, yes, they are a great regular season team, and they might win a playoff game, maybe two. But are they going to make the AFC Championship? Once that offense dies down, which is bound to in the colder weather, they don't have that running back to pass and to hand it off to keep defenses honest. They don't have that. And that brings me to the Chiefs, the other team that I think is not going to make it back. There's being asked to do more with less. Then there's being asked to do the impossible, which is something with nothing, turning water into wine. We've seen Brady try to do it some years, and he hasn't been able to do it, right? I mean, he's been 2006, had nothing at the wide receiver position. They lost in the conference championship. They made the conference championship. 2013, didn't have enough, lost in the conference championship. So what I am saying here is that they just don't have enough this year, which is okay. Tom Brady won 6 Super Bowls. That's fine. And Patrick Mahomes will probably win another Super Bowl down the road. It won't be this year. And it's not, you don't win the championship every single year. Michael Jordan did not win championships every single year. There were some years where he was one and done. I think the Chiefs just don't have enough firepower this year. And I think they are going to have an off year. They'll win some games, but I don't have them going all the way. That brings me to the Jaguars, a team that's arguably the most improved team in all of football, at least the AFC, right? I mean, they barely squeaked into the playoffs with a winning record, which we didn't even see coming. And Trevor Lawrence all of a sudden looks like the stud quarterback that the Jaguars drafted him to be. And on top of that, in that high-flying offense that they had in the second half of the year, you now add Calvin Ridley to that. That's a pretty freaking good offense. Their offensive line is still really good. They still have a very good running game. And their defense looks good enough. Now, where I have the Bengals going to the Super Bowl is where the Jaguars' inexperience is going to come back to bite them. These are both very good teams, but the Bengals just have a better offense, better personnel, and better experience. Joe Burrow is a much more seasoned player at this point in his career, whereas Trevor Lawrence, who knows, maybe he'll be better than Burrow. We don't know. But what we do know is that he's a little on the inexperienced side. And I think that's where the inexperience comes back to bite him, kind of like it did in this past postseason, right? I mean, he threw 4 picks in the first half. If that was against the Bengals, they would kill him. Yeah. And it happened against the Chiefs, the following playoff game. When he made mistakes, they made him pay for it. Right?
Yes.
So that's where I have the Bengals going to the Super Bowl. And my official Super Bowl matchup is the Bengals and the Lions. Battle of the Beasts. Actually, 2 cats, isn't it?
Yeah. A kitty bowl, as it were.
Oh, don't say it like that. That's so bad. It just sounds stupid.
Yeah, I know. Well, neither team's won a Super Bowl, so yeah. Only one team is no longer being called kitty.
Right.
You run with that, NFL. No, but all jokes aside, I think you're right. The Jags are definitely a team to watch out for, and I agree wholeheartedly with what you said about KC and what you said about Buffalo. Because, I mean, Kansas City, like you said, is asked to be doing more with less. Then there's just do more with Travis Kelce. And we've said many times, if Travis Kelce goes down, that team might be screwed. And then Buffalo, not even just that their offense is one-dimensional, the window of greatness their defense is in is about to snap shut. Or slam shut, actually. Von Miller, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, not getting younger, and you lost Tremaine Edmonds.
Yep.
And outside of...
Don't forget Leonard Floyd. They just brought in Leonard Floyd in free agency, who's also kind of old, but...
Yeah, he's all right. But another thing...
Yeah, keep going.
Is that Tre'Davious White has proven he's unreliable. I mean, he's easily a top 10 corner when he's on the field, but he's not always on the field. And who's your corner 2? Nobody I believe in, that's for sure. But yeah, I could totally see Jacksonville making it, especially now that they're a little more experienced, but not experienced enough to win the conference, I think.
Yeah, I just don't like. I'm very high on Jacksonville. I'm high on Trevor Lawrence, and I think Jacksonville has a very good team that can put it all together. And we're also missing the coaching. Doug Peterson has a Super Bowl ring, and he's proven to be a pretty good coach in the past. So I think that's going to help them. And just overall, I think the Jaguars, if you just don't think about the fact that it's Patrick Mahomes, that it's Josh Allen, and the Jaguars going, and you just look at the teams, you put the context behind it, then I think we can all put I'm going to put the Jaguars in this conference championship. And I also want to address recency bias, which we have heard a lot of, especially on our Instagram page.
Oh yeah.
Because apparently, for some reason, because a certain quarterback who won't be named, Patrick Mahomes, won league MVP last year, because the Chiefs won the Super Bowl last year, that somehow that means that it's automatically going to happen this year.
Sorry, continue.
How lazy do you have to get in your analysis that you have to say, because somebody did something last year, that it's going to happen again the following year? How many in this millennium, how many repeat Super Bowl champions have we had? One. Literally one. How many repeat MVPs have we had? A couple. We've had two. That's it. Two. And you're saying that all of a sudden, because Patrick Mahomes did more with less last year, that he's going to do it again this year? How do you know that he's not going to get hurt? How do you know that his lack of weaponry is going to catch up with him? And oh, by the way, it's even less than he had last year. Juju Smith-Schuster was your only wide receiver who surpassed 900 yards. None of them got over 1,000. And somehow we're supposed. What's that?
I said, what about Kelsey? I guess
Kelsey's a tight end. That's what I'm saying. He's a tight end. And yes, if you want to say that Kelsey's going to make up for it, fair enough. You better hope he doesn't get hurt. You better hope that defenses don't learn how to guard him, or just double team him. Because, sure, if you double team him, that leaves somebody else open. Kadarius Toney will be open. Marcus Valdes-Scantling will be open. Do you not think teams are just going to let them try to do that? If Marquez Valdes-Scantling beats the Bengals, then the Chiefs deserve it. Okay, fine. And the Bengals probably deserve to lose that game too, if that actually happens. Right? If that happens, then okay, fine, whatever. But that's definitely going to be what the game plan is. They're going to make Kadarius Toney or Marquez Valdes-Scantling beat them. And you also better hope that Travis Kelce doesn't get hurt. Because if he does, then they're eating even deeper garbage than they already are. I'm just saying. Because this recency bias is really atrocious. Also, we faced similar backlash last offseason when we picked the Eagles to win the division. And I had friends coming up to me saying, "Why did you pick the Eagles? Why did you pick it's not on Jalen Hurts to win the division. If Jalen Hurts is good, then they'll only win 7 games." Well, guess what? They won 13 and went all the way to the Super Bowl. And all of a sudden now, because the Eagles were in the Super Bowl last year, because Jalen Hurts was an MVP candidate last year, that all of a sudden, if we go against that, now we're also receiving backlash?
Yeah.
That is the dumbest. The recency bias is stupid.
Oh, yeah, I hear you. I do. And you know what's weird? Don't you think that we have been attacked for that? You know what I mean? There have been times in the show and comments on Instagram where we are being attacked for recency bias. And then all of a sudden we are not groveling to the Chiefs. And then they're like, what, they have the audacity to call us suffering from recency bias? That is asinine. And if you go to some of the comments in some of our posts, they're like, "Oh, why are you going recency bias?" How is supporting Cincy recency bias? They're in the Super Bowl 2 years ago and they just lost the championship. And I'm sorry, the Super Bowl hangover is real. It's sometimes people, they just want to be, well, I guess different's not the word, but they want to be noticed. And here's something, if you want to be noticed on our page and you really, really want to start a debate, I got something for you. Try harder.
Sure. I'm just listen, if somebody wants to take Patrick Mahomes for league MVP, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
But to bash
me for saying that I pick Joe Burrow, a guy who has arguably the best wide receiving core in the league, who has the most improved offensive line in all of football.
And a top 10 running back to lean on as well. Who
top 10 running back to lean on.
And a good coach.
Decent coaching. All of a sudden, and he's a
top,
arguably a top 3. He's arguably a top 2 quarterback in all of football. That should be a safe pick. But apparently that's bias. Yeah. That is the dumbest thing I have ever heard. Just because Patrick Mahomes won it last year doesn't mean he's going to win it this year. And I heard a dumb argument that said that the Patriots did it without any weapons.
Yeah, well, the Patriots also the greatest coach of all time.
That's not my point. Not my point. Oh, my point. Sorry, CJ. My point is that in the years that Tom Brady was asked to do more with less, they won games. He put up decent statistics, but he was never an MVP candidate in those years. Who had Tom Brady in the top, even in the top 5 in MVP in 2006? Who had him in there in 2013?
No one.
And even in the years where he was putting up really good statistics, in 2014, he was not a Super Bowl. He was not an MVP candidate. He was close. He was almost there, but he wasn't an MVP candidate because he was asked to work with Julian Edelman and Brandon LaFell as his top wide receivers. The years where he actually had weapons, 2007, he had Randy Moss and Wes Welker. 2010, not only Wes Welker, Randy Moss, but part of the season. You had one of the best tight end duos of the decade in Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez and Deion Branch.
And what about 2017, where he also had guys like Brandon Cooks and Rob Gronkowski?
Exactly. The years where he won MVP was when he had weapons, you morons. Yes, he was still contending for Super Bowls, but he wasn't putting up the statistics, especially in 2018. And then 2 years later, with a very different offense, played more vertical, he was an MVP candidate again, throwing 40-plus touchdowns a year. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you? It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It is a great achievement that Patrick Mahomes did more with less this year and managed to win league MVP, win a Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP. But to say that he's going to do that every year and to expect it, that's just complete and utter stupidity. Absolutely dumb. All right. And I do not apologize for having the Bengals and Lions in the Super Bowl. I don't.
You know what? I don't apologize.
That's my prediction.
Going there either. I'm right there with you. I am.
It's going to be Bengals and Lions. And you're going to like it. All right. Next is our Super Bowl champions. We're going to pick those next. This is the Fumblerooski podcast.
Here's Edelman broken up, and the pass is no sign yet. Edelman comes down with a football. They're saying it's a catch. It's caught! Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Swings it way down the field to Watkins! Sammy Watkins for the touchdown!
Welcome back to the Fumblerooski podcast. I'm Adam Wright with CJ Medeiros. Tuck is out tonight. So we are on to our Super Bowl predictions. So this is the end of our summer series episodes. It's been a fun summer. And it's been fun getting creative during one of football's great dead spots on the football calendar. But I think I'm ready for some actual football to cover.
I think we all are.
Yeah, which is going to start with our official Super Bowl preseason predictions. So we already have our matchups down as we established during the NFC and AFC championship predictions. We predicted the matchups and the victors. So what I had was the Lions and the Bengals. CJ?
I
picks.
had the Bengals and the 49ers.
All right. And without further ado, who is your pick to win it all?
I had to stop and think. Now, both of these teams are really good. Obviously, I mean, otherwise they wouldn't be in the Super Bowl. And both of these teams are armed to the teeth in terms of weapons. The San Francisco defense, I would argue, is better than Cincy's defense. But at the end of the day, I do believe that it will be a shootout. And which is why I am going with the Cincinnati Bengals to win the Super Bowl. And like I said, I will give the 49ers credit where it is due. Your defense is better. I've already listed who's on their defense. We know that they're probably have a top 10 defense. Cincy maybe fringe top 10, but let me tell you something. I do believe it's going to be a high scoring shootout. I'm talking about it's in the like last year, where both teams score over 30. But at the end of the day, when the chips are down, who do you want leading your shootout? Brock Purdy or Joe Burrow? Look, I told you I like Brock Purdy. I think that he can be really special, but I just don't think he's there yet. And you can give him all the weapons in the world, but at the end of the day, you're the quarterback. You're the signal caller. You have to get the ball from point A to point B. And I'm taking the MVP candidate personally. And I think Joe Burrow might have a little bit of a tougher time once again because of that Niners defense. But then again, good O-line, Joe Mixon, and the greatest receiver trio in the NFL. I mean, these guys could all be wide receiver ones somewhere else, even Tyler Boyd. So when you look at that and how spread thin that Niners defense is going to be, and when you consider like the inexperience of Brock Purdy versus Joe Burrow, who's already been to a Super Bowl, put my money on the Bengals. But like I said, I do think it's going to be a bit of a shootout because while Brock Purdy isn't anywhere near Joe Burrow's level, that his offense is stacked. He's got a good receiver duo, arguably the best running back in the game and the second best tight end in the game. So it's not going to be easy for Cincy, but Cincy, I think, takes it over San Fran.
Yeah, so I think mine is going to go exactly the same way. So the Lions and Bengals look at each other like they're looking into a mirror. In other words, they have practically the same team, right? You got both have very good offensive lines, both have very good running games, both have very good targets and have a very vertical offense. Where we're going to see the problem, and they both have good coaching as well. Where we're going to see the problem, where the discrepancy comes, is in the experience. The Bengals have been to the Super Bowl, and they also have been to an AFC championship after that. They also have much more talent in their passing game, and they have more talent in the they have more talent under center. I think while Jared Goff has experience going to a Super Bowl, just like Burrow does, Burrow has more talent. He's the better quarterback. He's the guy who has actually lived up to his number one overall pick potential. And that's what we're going to see. We're going to see Joe Burrow come out and have an unbelievable game. He's going to win Super Bowl MVP, most likely. Unless Jamar Chase does it. We've seen a wide receiver do it before. I think that the Bengals are just due to win a Super Bowl. They have all the stars aligned for them to put it together, and they are going to win the Super Bowl this year. Give me the Cincinnati Bengals. So we're going to have the same pick here with our Super Bowl predictions, as far as who wins it. But yeah, that's my pick.
I agree. Well, at least I agree with Cincy winning, that is.
Yeah.
I mean, they have the team too. They're a little more experienced. And I know the argument of it's their time is stupid, but is it not? I mean, the time to strike is now. The iron is hot. I mean, once again, Kansas City, it doesn't have that many weapons. Buffalo, Buffalo's horrifically one-dimensional, and the NFC doesn't exactly have the greatest heavy hitters to choose from.
It's their time in the sense that they've done their due diligence drafting young talent. They've used free agency, they've used trades, they've done everything that they could possibly do in order to put together a Super Bowl contending team, including getting playoff and Super Bowl experience. So everything they have done has led them to this season where they should win the Super Bowl. And if they don't, it's a massive disappointment. So if you guys disagree with our Super Bowl pick, the Bengals winning it, okay, fair enough. We could have another team winning it. But I think we can agree on the fact that it is Super Bowl or bust for the Bengals.
Absolutely.
Because this is where if they can't prove they can do it now, barring some serious injury where we'll probably kick the can down the road next year, if they can't do it now, when will they do it? Because the stars are really aligned for them. Their enemies are getting weaker. They are getting stronger. This is it. There's only so much time before Patrick Mahomes winds up with a real wide receiver. There's only so much time before the Bills get their heads out of their asses and get themselves a decent running game, right? Or when Trevor Lawrence grows up and it turns out the Jaguars can ball too, right? Or something happens out west or in the NFC, right? Something could happen over there. So the time is now. It really is. So give me the Bengals. I think they're going to win it. If they don't, it's a massive disappointment. And again, if we disagree on that, if you're listening to this and we disagree, fine. But I think we can agree on this being a Super Bowl or bust year. They need to win it this year. If they can't do it now, when will they? Will they ever? Because then they're going to have to start looking within and think, maybe, is there another issue? Can Joe Burrow get it done? Is our offensive line unfixable? Is our coaching a problem? Is Jamar Chase actually disappearing during the postseason? Right? We're going to start looking at other issues. And then it's going to be a massive problem. And players might be demanding to leave because they're thinking, okay, I can't win it here. T. Higgins is going to say, you know what? I'm stuck in Jamar Chase's shadow. This team can't win a Super Bowl. But the Chiefs aren't having any issues. And I'd be the number one wide receiver there. I'm going to Kansas City. Goes over there, they win a ring because they've had no issues winning Super Bowls. That's what I'm going to take at that point. I'm going to start to lose faith in Cincinnati because I think this is their year. I think they've had a lot of things go against them. I think this has been an imperfect team that has done the most with what they have had, but now they are not imperfect. So let's see what they can do right here. Can they win the Super Bowl? I think they can. If I'm wrong, then I lose faith in that team. That's going to be it at that point. All right. Well, there's our Super Bowl predictions. We both have Cincinnati winning it all. We never got Tux. But I have a feeling
I
it has
assume
some
it
Ravens
wouldn't be
bias.
Cincy.
It has some purple involved. All right. Next, we got the fan box where we're going to tell you some of the answers that we got, some of the popular ones for dark horse Super Bowl contending teams, some of the ones that maybe we haven't mentioned yet. That's next. This is the Fumblerooski podcast.
Here's Edelman broken up, and the pass is no sign yet. Edelman comes down with a football. They're saying it's a catch. It's caught! Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown!
Welcome back to the Fumblerooski podcast. I'm Adam Wright with CJ Medeiros. We have reached the fan box portion of our show where we post a question filter on our Instagram every Monday, and you can respond with hot takes, questions, and more. And we will discuss it and give you a shout out on our podcast. Respond to next week's fan box question to be featured on our show. And we apologize in advance for these responses and not being able to put names to this. But our feed kind of expired all of the. So when you go into the feed section, not the For You page or it's hard to kind of have the spot where it shows who liked your pages and who responded to everything. It expired our fan box. And once it gets past that, especially after the fan box, the story spot expires, then there's nothing there. We can't find out who said what. And we couldn't get there quick enough. So we apologize on that part, but we will say what was said. Just we can't put faces to who said it. But our first response, we had a lot of the Ravens. And the Ravens are a team that since 2019 has kind of fallen into under the shadow of Cincinnati. They're still a competitive team, especially when Lamar Jackson's healthy. Notice how I said when he's healthy, because he never is. And that's the issue here. They're winning games. He's still a very competitive quarterback. He just has to stay healthy. And the Ravens believe that he hasn't been able to stay healthy because he's running too much. They want him to throw more and stay in the pocket, which is why they have, on top of retaining their good offensive line that they've had for years, they have also added some pieces in the passing game, right? So they still have Rashad Bateman, but they also brought in Odell Beckham Jr. They brought in Zay Flowers. They brought in blanking on his name right now. Not Mark Andrews. They have Mark Andrews too. Jesus. Who was on the Patriots who we all hate?
Nelson Aguilar,
who in some ways will be worse, will do more harm than good. Take it from a Patriots fan, and I'm sure you Eagles fans can agree with me as well.
Raiders
as well.
Too.
Yes, Raiders too. But he's not. He'll be good. He will help in some capacity. In the position that he's
draw coverage, maybe, I don't know.
He'll catch some passes. I mean, he still has abilities. It's just that his hands are so slippery.
His hands
he has some of the worst hands I've ever seen.
We're Pats fans. We've seen Wes Welker.
All right. Another team we didn't mention is the Jets. That is a team that has been mentioned on our fan box. And the Jets are intriguing for a lot of reasons. They have a ferocious defense. They have now a franchise quarterback who, if he can still play at this age of 39 in Aaron Rodgers, then they'll be pretty good. They also have Garrett Wilson, who's a very good target for him. And they have a pretty good running back trio in Dalvin Cook, Breece Hall, and Michael Carter. And you could also mention Zonovan Knight as well. The issue I have is that offensive line. Bill Belichick really screwed him over when he traded back with the Pittsburgh Steelers to get one pick ahead of the Jets, because he knew that the Steelers needed offensive line help, just as the Jets did. Man, it never gets old watching Bill Belichick screw over the Jets, because they haven't been able to solve that offensive line issue. Now, if Mekhi Becton
haven't, in their camp, it has been an issue.
If Mekhi Becton, it turns out, can stay healthy and can play to his potential, then they might have something there. And their offensive line is solid when it's healthy. Keyword, when it's healthy. So they'll have their work cut out for them there. But I have my reservations with the Jets. I think they have the highest ceiling, but the lowest floor.
Yeah, they do.
All right. Another team we had a lot of the Chargers. And the Chargers are a team, I thought they were going to be really good last year. And they still were solid. They were a playoff team, but that coaching is so bad.
Yeah.
Really bad.
And despite being star-studded, their defense is unreliable.
Yep. All right. Where's another response we can look at? How about the Seattle Seahawks? This is a team we were toying with to make the conference championship, but San Francisco is just too potent. And when I say potent, the reason I use that word is because they have questions at the quarterback position. If those questions are just barely answered, just a little bit with Brock Purdy, or you could even mention Trey Lance, I guess.
No, you can't.
Or Sam Darnold's. If those become answers just a little bit, then I have San Francisco. I just have them over them. I think Seattle has been doing great with everything they've been working on. It's Geno Smith, man. It is Geno Smith. I know he had a great year last year, but I have some questions about him. And I think he'll still be good again. But do we trust him in a division battle against the 49ers? I just don't see it. All right. So, looking for some of the other good ones here. A lot of them were answers that we already kind of gave. I saw the Browns a little bit. And I also saw the Steelers. Both teams in kind of they kind of similar positions in a way. Bear with me here. They both have good defenses. At least with lots of potential. They both have a lot of talent around them. Good running game, good offensive line. The issue I have is the quarterback on both sides. Can Deshaun Watson really play like he used to? I think he can, and I think this Browns team can be competitive. Kenny Pickett, can he be what the Steelers see in him, which is the franchise quarterback? And also, can they be good enough so that they could be better than not just the Bengals, but also the Ravens? Because I think the Ravens are a better pick here than both of those teams. Too many question marks there. All right. What is the next one? We got a lot of Lions picks, and we got a lot of Jaguars picks, but we kind of already picked those for our conference championships and Super Bowls. So we already kind of went over those. We got some Dolphins. And their offensive line is just in such a bad spot. I'm sorry about my dog barking in the background.
You're forgiven.
It's really hard to see that. And I think the Jets are in a better spot than they are. Jesus, Doug. I think the Jets are in a slightly better spot just because they know their quarterback can actually play.
Now, Tua can play. It's just that one more concussion, and he should probably retire.
I'm really hesitant on him. I like Tua. I think he can play. I'm not sure, though. The jury still kind of is out going into year 4. The Cowboys is another team we got, and we'll end with this one. The Cowboys they're the Cowboys. Like they're just the Cowboys. I don't know what else there is to say. They might make the playoffs. They might even win the freaking division. But it's just hard to take them seriously anymore. They haven't been to the NFC Championship in like 3 decades.
It's true. And by the way, there's one thing, though, that I do want to point out about the Cowboys. Remember how we said the Chargers coaching was questionable? Well, put that on steroids and you have Dallas.
Yep.
Mike McCarthy should never have been hired. He's literally just like a fatter Jason Garrett. That is what, minus the clapping, that's what he is. You did not take a step forward from Garrett to McCarthy. You did a lateral step. As long as Mike McCarthy is their coach and he does not have Aaron Rodgers to carry him, he will never win another ring.
Yeah. All right. Here, I'll give this one last one because we did have one more. We actually had two more. We had the Texans too. I'm not bringing that up.
That
No,
was a
thank you.
joke.
That it wasn't a joke. I know who said it, and it wasn't a joke.
Didn't say it was
just
a funny one. The
no.
answer in and of itself was a joke.
You know who said it because you were responding to them. Exactly. It wasn't a joke because he went up to me and he brought it up the other day. Yeah, they're not. The Texans are not going to the Super Bowl. They're not. They're not even contenders to go there. They're a couple years
They're not
off.
even contenders to win their division.
All right, the New York Giants is another one. They're not. Even if they turn out to be as good as we think that they can be, they're not. They're still not good enough because the Eagles are better than them. The Cowboys are better than them. Probably not the Commanders or the football team or whatever they're going to be because they might actually have another name change.
Yeah, I think they're gonna. Yeah, but
probably
no, the Giants aren't there. I'm not sold on Daniel Jones, and I know he was just paid, but I have been adamant that he should not have been paid that. I mean, look, they're winning, and I credit Coach Brian Daboll because he's a hell of a coach.
Yeah,
but
I'm sorry.
Last year, your $100 million quarterback, by the way, last year threw 3,200 yards, 15 touchdowns, 5 picks. What?
Yeah.
This man better eclipse 4,000 yards. Otherwise, I don't know what to tell you.
Yep. Our other response was New Orleans Saints and the Bears. And we can be short and sweet with these two.
No.
Just no. Like they might be playoff teams, especially probably the Saints because their division is so weak, but not the Bears, not just yet. They might be a playoff team as well. But that's it. I mean, I don't see much else. They're too young. That's the problem. They might be a Super Bowl contender in the next year or two, but that's about it. Yeah. So that's about it for our responses. So you guys make sure you respond next week. I'm sorry about this one. We won't be able to get it out. We probably won't be able to post about it either. But yeah, so that'll do it for us tonight. Thank you for listening to us. We have new episodes out on Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have all our episodes available on Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and so much more. Also, be sure to follow our Instagram at Fumblerooski_podcast to keep up with our podcasts and latest coverage on the NFL. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Over and out.